The 4 stars of discord, the small Mavuika to this day, the character who. I thought it was empowered believable, and in fact, XIANGLING has left Bennett and Kuki alone. Like apocalypse horsemen who haven't had power creep yet. And the specific teams where XIANGLING appears specifically can continue to do a job. Spectacular, Raiden National among them, and on many occasions it is preferable to play XIANGLING that Mavuika in Raiden National because Mavuika is classist and whaler to overcome. To XIANGLING at Raiden National today, plus it comes free in the right of flashlights. Let's see the legendary build of this amazing character that exists since day 1 and that above. Not only do we get free in the Rite of Lanterns, but it is free when passing floor 3 of the Abyss. So, welcome to XIANGLING's legendary build. Leave a good like, adopt and subscribe. If you comment with the algorithm, remember that it costs you nothing. It is free, recommends and positions the video. Helps a lot to grow up. The channel team is very grateful for everything that we can get thanks to it. And I can also thank you with a free bendy just for commenting. Give like and subscribe with bell once a day here in YouTube. Enjoy if you are eating, and just if XIANGLING starts to eat, make the most of it if you're eating and it's very rich. Thank you for enjoying the channel, and leave me the comments that you are eating or that you are welcome to guest at the live shows. Let's see the build of BO.
Okay.
XIANGLING. Well, XIANGLING, not only despite having been believed, power still remains spectacularly well, but not only does it still have enormous use, but it is very possible. To this day, the uses of XIANGLING are mainly the Raiden National and I know that here already many will say if I am. I practically believe that more than half of all players who play in XIANGLING played in Raiden National, and then already a category beyond. Plays in Kinich teams, Mualani teams, and Tartaglia international teams. They are mainly the 4 uses of the XIANGLING, then also play reverse melts and some more teams. As an overload with Chevreuse, but mainly the 4 most core teams of XIANGLING today. Are these 4 with Kinich, with Mualani, with Tartaglia that is used less, and in Raiden National? Well, what is the reality that Mavuika has come to empower her? And technically, yes, she does. But Mavuika, as I said at the beginning, is playing DPS in the field with which XIANGLING continues to do. Zub DPS. Be in Raiden National if you don't have everything with constellations and the whole story as I explained in the videos of the new National Archonte, it is really more recommended to recommend XIANGLING in Raiden National and C, mainly for Kinich and Mualani. It is true that for them, Mavuika is much stronger and is best in slot. But for everything else, including for example, an overload or melt in melt, XIANGLING applies more pyro than Mavuika, with which XIANGLING is still best in slot, melted and overloaded. It is true that Mavuika can do more damage than XIANGLING, but like Mavuika, you will take her elsewhere in an overload off. Chevreuse, as I explained, it is more advisable to try to minimize important units and play full 4 stars as this Chevreuse. XIANGLING Fischl. Some Electro that you like, so Orowan, Setos, Baidu, X-Note, the other Electro you want to put there in overload then. XIANGLING has a still spectacular prominence, still very present, and will follow him in the Fae. How does XIANGLING work? Just like the Abul of Xingqiu is very easy. Because after so many years, more than 4 of Genshin impact and character study is easy. Summarizing and synthesizing the contribution that she has, her normals do not rise, but she has a mechanics with the C2 you make an extra pyro hit when you give normal, and you can take advantage of in the equipment of Supercharge Quick Swap, as you can check, and there will be some gameplay here in the background full. Today's Abyss I spent full 4 stars with overload using Dory, and if you notice I stayed a lot with XIANGLING on field activating this C2, which is very rare but not carry, not B. The normal ones move the Uova the elemental strips. The Wova the Ulva makes hits of 210%, do not underestimate. The damage of Wova does good damage the bear in field, raise it not in priority like the ulti that is a number 1 priority to go up. As you see, I have up crown in the ulti, but 1 or 2 points below of the ulti. If the Wova is very interesting, has cooldown of 12, the rotation of XIANGLING is 20, with which is a Wova by rotation is not that I give you time to throw 2, and besides the Wova apart to do damage and reapply pyro apart from the pyronid also when the duration is over. of the over leaves you a Gandilla in the field of UFO that you pick up with a concrete character that you want me to give you 10% attack today this little. At the time this was pretty much right now. It's a little bit now. You know that the attack boogies are a savage and so on. But it's better than nothing. Obviously, that's the Wova is the elemental. Then the ulti is interesting to explain why it is. What makes XIANGLING his ulti the famous Pyronado? First has cost of 80 very high east. Nerfeus that I sometimes explain that makes the characters of 4 stars mainly have higher ulti costs and still balance them. XIANGLING is very powerful and is not balanced as 4 stars, then has cooldown of 20, again the same cooldowns. Highs of much more versatile characters are 15, 16 or up to 18 such as Mavuka, XIANGLING and YALAN, then have 18 or 15 that have many other Archontes, but XIANGLING has 20, and this makes them in rotations. 20 seconds as Raiden National, although there really is the next good cooldown of Xingqiu is 21 for the kick, more or less matches well the team, but at the time on Zhao, the one you want to play this National Archon that explains the rotation decreases and improves because you go to 18 because Raiden 18, Mavuika 18, Furina 15, Bennett 15. But this is another story basically. It has 20 seconds of cooldown, which is the high cooldown is the attempt to balance it, and as you see, it says you have 10 seconds of Pyronado, which is very little, is half the time the famous term uptime that I explained to you in other videos, because here is half is not a full uptime but is just half the uptime. This technically would be terrible, but you all heard that. The C4 of XIANGLING, and surely in the right of the lanterns, if you do not have the C4 I recommend it to you, gives us 40% duration of Pyronado that makes the use 1420, and you also know that. All the characters in casting the ulti have like a second of that casting time with what? Which you already passed to about 15, 20, 15 and a half, 20, and is much more stable the damage with the C4 if you do not have C4. Greatly notes XIANGLING's gameplay. Now reminder about constellations now. I'm talking about them, but there's a video explaining not only which character is worth free in them. Ooh. Constellation is the most important, that will be around here on screen to continue to see that I uploaded it. Little and thanks for all the support. Then the Pyronado there is another thing more spectacular and special too. And it's how you see there's like 3 strokes, and then Pyronado's damage by casting the Pyronado. You do 3 strokes very fast, you do 1, 2, 3 boom boom very fast, those 3 initial strokes that you do, which you can vaporize. The 3 are basically those initial 3 strokes of what? Scale the biggest damage that puts the year Pyronado 238. That's the damage that you're going to do everything. The time already with each of the turns of the Pyronado is to say the first 3 climbs. Little ones are the 3 hits that you do, just cast the ulti. You do 3 hits very fast. That people sometimes don't know this, that's simple. This is what XIANGLING does. First talent, abstention egg range increases 20%. This will always be active, and egg always will then have a slightly higher range. It is easy to throw it correctly so that it always hits the enemy. Doesn't usually have much trouble, so he doesn't have much more trouble. This is XIANGLING's kit. Constellations. The cone reduces the resistance to pyro from enemies attacked by the egg by 15%. This serves and helps for damage to XIANGLING. Serves help for damage to Veen, where for example, in Raiden National Nucleus, that is to vaporize your ulti and serve. You have surely heard many. Monopyro equipment means that it is a computer that the entire computer does damage pyro. For example, a Mavuka carry with XIANGLING, Bennett and Shilonen. The team have a Monopyro Oro, Alekino Monopyro that plays a lot of Alekino Kazuha, XIANGLING, Bennett, or some other variant, because this also helps for Bennett carry teams, because it also buffa Bennett. Then the C2. The most useless XIANGLING is the one that told you that every last blow of normal attack says applies to the enemy a state of implosion for 2 seconds, and after time there is a blow 75% pyro damage in effect area you get to give normal attacks and jump. A pyro hit out there random that helps you in overload equipment is already no use to reality. This is the Pyronet +3, tremendously important because it's ulti, its source of damage. This is the most important XIANGLING because it's the one that gives you, say, 15-20 utilization of your ulti. That is much more solid. This is the Rho +3. That is not so important, increases you a little bit of egg damage and that's it. And this makes all the members of the team go in 15. Pyro damage bonus. This affects itself, with which it increases its own damage, but would also affect to a carry Pyro, who is a Bennett, carry an Alekino, carry a Mabuka, carry in teams, Pyro Monkey, or weird things or overloads with Bennett carry. So if you look at it, it's also as a buffer for Pyro. XIANGLING equipment is very simple kit, and then sets carry. At the beginning of Genshin, XIANGLING was recommended, with which later appeared this famous set. of the emblem of the destiny that harms in your ultimate proportionally to your recharge of XIANGLING energy usually has. Now I talk about the recharge that you like very much in the buildings around. Of 200 of recharged energy, and this set gives you 50% damage to the ulti. With 200 of recharge, if you reach 300 gives you 75% damage to the ulti is what puts a lot of text that people never read summary. That this information matters, that you will always have about 200, with which this set is always going to give you about 50% damage inflicted on the ulti. There is some set that you could provide more damage or greater coefficient in XIANGLING the Witch or Dream or Continuant. Being in this case, in the specific case of her, some viable option, the answer is not the Witch. Is far from the emblem set, and the set of dreams would have very good synergy with this weapon. And get close to the damage of emblem the set of dreams ores, but as almost always you want it to reach those 200 recharges that translate into 50% damage inflicted on your ulti and ulti of XIANGLING, unlike for example Xingqiu Yu or Yelin, who basically do good damage, but they do not vaporize. In the case of XIANGLING, their ulti in many teams is the main source of a damage of the equipment, specifically citing in this case the overload to the Tartar equipment International and to the Raiden National, if Raiden is not C2, in the case of Raiden being C2 also. Sometimes XIANGLING is the one that does the most damage to the team, but the damage is more or less shared. At about 55, 45, 55, XIANGLING, 45 Raiden. Then in the case of XIANGLING would tell you that at 95% of the cases emblem set, there are 5% with very good stats, and the whole story, and only if you end the Scarlet Sands of Sinnoh with the Bacula, which turns mastery into more attack. Only in that case that XIANGLING with Golden Dreams could be worth it, and in some case very. To improve the set of emblem equal conditions, but as I say, the reality is that the 95% of cases emblem set of Destiny, now that she wears it as well, is complex because she can wear charging clock, attack clock, or master clock when carrying each case. This explains it. A lot of videos, but always at the end, a lot of text people who play Genshin also. We have that simplify it well. The weapon, if your weapon has no recharge, has seen that easy. The clock has too. Being recharged, because you're going to have to reach more than 200 in some cases now. I'm talking about when they take 200 and when they take 230, which is about the 2 recharges that XIANGLING handles. If gun doesn't give you a recharge, the clock has to be recharged, because you're not going to get to recharge. Easy energy truth. And now attack or mastery, well, if having enough recharge, you have a very, 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 very good items that give you a high critical proportion. We talked about that if you carry, for example, the catch, that is a weapon that many play with XIANGLING U, over 58 of skill at rest plus 12 of catch 70 and 150 damage, then it's worth it. The Master's Watch. If on the contrary you're starting, your little XIANGLING is not perfect, you don't have items of extremely high critical proportion, then it is better to look for an attack clock and not mastery. That's the summary. There are more specific in different situations where with certain very specific things, a Master's Watch with something similar can work out of the ordinary, but the criterion is simple. If no matter what weapon you have, I gave you the example of the catch, but whatever the weapon, if your critical value in the items and in total in XIANGLING having enough recharge does not neglect the recharge, that is the priority. You have a high crit value, a high critical ratio, the clock. Mastery will give you more damage because how a reaction and multipliers works. If you do not have items of high critical proportion and your critical proportion in total XIANGLING, depending on the weapon you carry and the rest, it's not very high, then wear a clear attack clock. I've set the example in catch, but there's guns like the Vacuum of Sands or some other that give you different critical proportions, for example. And another thing, also very, very canon in XIANGLING, if CN, you carry the Dragon's Prediction, highly recommended weapon for new people that will come out in any moment on the banner, as this weapon gives you mastery. With the prediction of the dragon you do not. It gives you recharge. You will always wear recharge clock, but some will say, but I have a lot of recharge. So the clock is mastery of attack. Prediction doesn't give you critical proportion. With prediction of the dragon will always be recharged, but otherwise I don't believe it. But if it won't be attacker, for example, the Vacuum of the Sands gives you 44 probability, so we'll say cool because I have a peel of the vacuum turns it mastery into attack. but does not give you recharge, then you require priority and energy recharge clock. But if for whatever it is, you get 200 of recharge in, Zubstead, you can put on a master's watch and no attack, and some more example came to see XIANGLING. With Jade or XIANGLING with Homa, the truth is that I would recommend, now I talk about weapons in depth, but I would recommend Catch and or even Favonius in XIANGLING above Jade or Homa, because if maybe you don't know about recharges, you're going to lack energy. But in any case with Jade or Homa, again, you'll have to go recharge clock, so as you can check, it's either recharge or if you carry Catch or recharge weapons in Heavenly to Pua, for example Favonius and others, or your own. XIANGLING's own weapon, forgive Raiden's own weapon, the Light of the Reaper and the KC. Bring light from the Reaper if you have too much critical proportion, but since that weapon does not give proportion critical, then it's complicated, but you could wear Master's Watch, improving the attack. If with the weapon, for example, of Raiden that does not give critical proportion, to get about 70 of probability and 140 damage, in that case, the clock is mastery if you get 70 120 with the weapon. Raiden, for example, the Light of the Mower would then be attack clock, and so on. There are many combinations of weapons, and sure, someone in the comments says, but if I carry another weapon that you have not said in another situation that you have not said, and I do not understand the criterion that if the weapon does not give recharge, the clock is going to be recharged, and I do not understand the criterion of crit value. Critical total high, then what do I do then? Test if you have watches of both ways. That's going to be complicated for you to get an attack watch and a mastery equal conditions. And very good, both, but try, because there are different situations in which, according to how doing things can hurt you more or less depending on the rest of the artifacts you have. In XIANGLING, but this is very important and short, in easy for all players, recharge clock if the weapon doesn't give you recharge, and attack clock mostly because it won't have. And perfect artifacts, the Master's Watch is for a small part of players, Genshin very late, who have a lot of critical proportion and understand what they are doing. That's basically the summary. Now the Kali is always going to be pyros, and the helmet almost always. Unless the weapon gives you probability like the Baku Sands or the Catch itself that gives you, well, but it is very difficult to get the rest of probability in substat, although people have done it because it will be the helmet 70% critical probability, 30% critical damage. If the gun gives you probability and there's no excess of this, you know how it works. I have a helmet. Example, critical damage that gives us 33 of recharge. This helmet is like perfect for this CIA in it. Lincoln Baku it, but mainly like the weapons that will play Catch or Dragon's Loss or things like that, or the Light of Raiden's Sacredness, which is one of his best weapons. In fact, then he will always go probability helmet in general, because you won't have probability now. I'm talking about how much probability. And raise them in priority recharge to reach those 200 or 230 according to the proportion teams. Critical probability here in top priority, and then in another priority you have to look for mastery. You don't have to look for attack, you have to look for mastery, the other substat good for if in limits mastery. You don't have to look for attack in the substance. The watch is another subject, but in substat master's degree. Priority percentage attack, do not look. Do not worry is better than mastery, but vary by. Under priority of critical probability and critical damage weapons, now let's do a 40-minute video with the weapons if you want the character who makes the best use of practically all the weapons of the game. And there is a meme that is always on all social networks and communities of Genshin who put XIANGLING with a throne full of spears, because every time serves Utao to serve Utao, but really always serves XIANGLING all there. So I'm going to summarize the 3 best spears so much that they're say 5 stars. That if you don't have them, then you can use others like the 4 stars free to play, because they are the Catch and the Dragon's Doom, that practically everyone will have the weapons that I recommend 5 stars, and not only that I recommend, but that the coefficient of damage is the maximum possible that can reach XIANGLING are surely not many of those you have. Equip, because I've seen a lot of XIANGLING with rubber and weird things, I'm sorry, but they're not the highest damage coefficient in XIANGLING with 5-star weapon to this day is Light from Raiden's Reaper, who'll be over here on screen. I, in this account, don't have more Light. Raiden's More Light is the best weapon in history for XIANGLING. Plus, if you're Raiden, it's not C2. Even if you have Cone and Raiden weapon, it's better to put the More Light on XIANGLING, because the team will do more damage, because Raiden in no case does more damage than XIANGLING until it is K3 and weapon in Raiden National. If you play on a XIANGLING and Raiden team, then if it's C2 or conin, mainly cone or less the light of the mower if you have a XIANGLING does not carry it Raiden if Raiden's wearing it and Raiden's not C2 duo. You're making a huge mistake, and your team is losing. Birds are their best XIANGLING weapon in the style of the game, talking about the 5 stars. Second best weapon Reaper late game history for a XIANGLING, the Sand Staff. Scarlet with charging clock, and here it gives us and opens us the possibility to play Golden Dreams, and even being worth and carrying Golden Dreams is the only alternative where you can play really well Golden Dreams, but always play Emblem of Destiny. And then the third weapon that eating 5 stars that gives us a very high coefficient of damage is not home, is not the Jade that many of you have seen XIANGLING play Jade. That still is not bad. The Jade truth is good. Then play home and Jade, but below the other. That I will tell you is the Heavenly Spike. The Heavenly Spike here on screen on this account, that is my main one. I don't have a Heavenly Spike. 4 years and I never got the Spike either. I don't want it, but it's a curiosity. The Heavenly Spike. It's the 5-star weapon I'm going to recommend if you don't have Raiden Staff or weapon buy. Above home and above Jade, the Spike gives you recharge, probability, high base attack, and combines very well with the rest of construction. You can get XIANGLING and get an output of damage. Very good. In addition to that, when giving you recharge, allows you to reach 200 with the substats, and that. The clock is not recharged thing that if you go Jade or home between the will have to be if you and recharging, and you already lose something, the Heavenly Permanent Spike, if you don't have any of the 3 there. If the Jade and the home to whom I have home are not bad at all, but I would recommend directly to you Theme. Gasha, we go to the free-to-play weapons here. Some will ask me, Phil, Emily's gun that gives 33 of probability and gives us a passive that gives us more attack and a passive that gives us energy and damage. Inflicted if there's man burns if you're going to play with Mualan and or Kindish on a team where there's burns, because Emily's gun for XIANGLING is fine with the truth. But they're just 2 teams where there's gonna be burns. If there's no burns, I repeat, nothing outside the 3 weapons I've given you. Zai could play home Jade, but the truth, if you don't have those, and you only get 1 Jade free. A home to put the home to another character who takes advantage of it more, in Alakino for example. And you, I say directly in XIANGLING, you're already playing all 3 free-to-play guns, so you don't get into it. Troubles that I recommend to you, which are of catch, is a spectacular weapon because it gives a base attack. So normal, and I recharge enough to wear an attack watch or mastery, and 12 probability. 32 uncritically inflicted and inflicted harm that is best in your ulti is Jesus Christ, even if it is. Free to catch gun, then Dragon's Doom R5, a base attack. Yes, it is low in this. 221 case of mastery, but if in Limba, it Poriza all the blows and 36 of damage inflicted to enemies. Affected by Hydro or Pyro is a spectacular passive, and another spectacular weapon that to be 4 stars overcome many weapons of 5 stars, and finally, the Favonius that doesn't give you so much heat synergy, but the extra particles that are giving you, so that she and the whole team have ultis. When you are new, or you do not understand well what it is like to have permagality on all teams, is a help. A spectacular quality of life. This weapon is quality of life is not strong, nor will you do any more damage like the others, but at least it makes it easier to finish learning how to play with XIANGLING and Genshin Impact. So if you don't have the 3 5-star guns, I'll tell you directly that you're going, or by capture, or by perdition, do not warm up by Jade or Homa, because even if you see numbers in the larger stats, the total damage output of XIANGLING does not exceed that of catch, even if you carry Thay, Homa, and weird things that easy, if they have summed up in 3 weapons 5 stars, 3 weapons free to play the Ludo of the Vaku Blinder, the Scarlet Sands, and Heavenly Spike. That is also permanent. Comes out any minute, and the free-to-play catch Perdition Dragon and Favonius, and that's it. You forget the rest of the weird stuff with XIANGLING and now construction, because the first thing is that here you see my recharge is fatal to die fund to Father Gag for 85,745,2528. I'm basically rebuilding it because I removed the staff, so I'm not building. XIANGLING with staff to see what is the limit of damage that I can reach, no, and I lack. Recharge now if you play in very high power generation equipment, mainly Raiden National. And overload with Chevrus, then you have to have between 195 and 200 recharges, as you say. If I am and you, only play Raiden National and overload Chevrus, perfect 100, 195, and 200 recharger. In fact, I think most players will say if I, because almost everyone plays Sing. In Raiden National, now low power generation equipment that is melted with Ryo Dursley. The teams of Kinnish, the teams of Tartaglia, and the teams of Moalani, those teams do not generate Particles, if Inlindi doesn't generate well of particles either, so you're going to require 230, so here it's your turn to make you the studio team slay, and you don't play, and little by little you just you play on carry rate national as 195, 200 you play the rest of the teams or pretend to play. The rest of the equipment can make her change the weapon that she carries for the favor news, for example that 30 more recharge unless you change a weapon that's already giving you recharge, but in short, if you go to play the other teams that are not rated national and overload 225, 230 suffers greatly of recharging, and I'm very sorry because it's a lot later, the probability about 70 always, but the of catch gives you 12, with catch try here to see that you have between 58 and 60 and little more. 12 of the catch critical damage if the weapon does not give you critical proportion more than 120, and if already you have 140, 150 going very well in fact. And if the weapon gives you critical proportion, mainly this, which is the weapon, the hollow sands or the spike that gives you 8 or the home to 66, or the jade that gives you 22, there you have to go a little further concretely with the vacuous and good substat. You can reach more of 70, 180 in many cases. The master's degree XIANGLING rises with mastery as she rises level. Scale with mastery simply by raising level earned mastery then. As you win, I think, 100 without doing anything you have to intersect at least another 100 in substat, or if it goes clock. Recharge that is 187 because more than 300 clock of recharge, not pardon master clock with clock. More than 300 or the dragon prediction that has also given you 121 plus the base scale of the 300 more or less there is very well, and the attack neither worry about the attack nor look at it, because the XIANGLING attack usually has very little attack on her alone as a 4-star character. As a base of attack wins a lot with BNT and the rest of the team Bufos, but the attack neither. Look at this is the link. And this is XIANGLING's legendary build, the teams I've said generation. High energy 195, 200 overloads, and Raiden National very low power generation, 225, 130 Kinich. Mualani and melted with Ryozli. I'm forgetting some team, I don't think I know which one. He's forgetting me, but Tartaglia knew he was forgetting, and Tartaglia too. National, and if only with Chevrus in overload and already everyone who plays these teams. Nothing more without playing the rest 195, 200, and you go quiet little more. This is XIANGLING's skin, the last. Besides, I don't think this one's going up anymore. It's already final and final, so thank you for enjoying it. This video, share it, I hope you will greatly improve your XIANGLING. Let me in the comments how much mastery has your XIANGLING, how much damage does for Pyronato. Take care to have very good day. I don't know.